and traveling and seeing my friends and popular TV shows. I just hadn't been carving out much time for, or any time for, serving others. It's, it's this strange feeling to feel busy. We're always running around with errands and juggling work and social gatherings, but at the same time kind of disconnected from our local community. And yeah, so I started thinking about this loneliness recession we're always talking about.
The U.S. Surgeon General today declared a new public health epidemic in America: loneliness.
I work from home most of the time, and I know, federal data shows Americans spend more time alone at home than they did 20 years ago. So all of this just led me to do some hard thinking about my life and my own schedule, and I was like, I need to make some kind of change.
Okay, so what'd you do?
Well, I didn't really know what to do. But I was like, I'm going to start with a New Year's resolution. So at the start of 2024, I just set a New Year's resolution to volunteer.
And how did that go?
Well, it was also a little harder than I expected. I'm not really religious. I didn't have a faith institution to plug easily into. Vox doesn't facilitate this sort of thing. We don't have corporate volunteering events on the weekend to go to. I sent out some emails of inquiry on sites like volunteermatch.org, but I didn't hear anything back. So I was kind of at a loss for a while, and eventually I stumbled on a couple of groups, including one called We Are Family in DC. It's this nonprofit that's been around for 20 years. They deliver groceries once a month to low-income seniors. Hi, Mr. Diaz.
Hey, how are you?
How are you? I've been out with them a few times now. The people are really sweet. Have your produce?
Thank you.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
Well, that's next month.
What?
I was going to say, I hope you have a good holiday.
Oh, you
I'm
too.
anticipating myself.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you too. I'll see you next month.
You as well.
I like that, Rachel. I like that a lot.
Me too. It was really nice. He's really nice, and they all are just, not everyone wants to talk, for a while, but many of them do, and many of them seem, it's nice to see people come and show care.
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, tell me about this group.
The group was co-founded by this guy, Mark Anderson. He directs it now, but he originally started out as a volunteer.
Everybody, unless it says produce only, which means they just get produce, everybody plastic bag of non-perishables.
I asked Mark after the last time I went what he's learned about recruiting and retaining volunteers, since for so many other groups, it seems like it's gotten harder than it used to be, but We Are Family has kind of been able to buck the trend, and they really do seem to continue to be able to engage loyal volunteers.
Essentially, if volunteers have a meaningful experience, and for us, we would ideally prefer that it would be a transformative experience, that they, at the end of it, they look at the world in a different way and they feel part of it in a different way, then they tend to come back.
And the experience has been meaningful to me, and I've been coming back. It definitely caught some sort of charitable bug through this. I have donated blood 3 times this year after having never donated before, and I recently accepted an invitation to join a local nonprofit board, which I'm really excited about as kind of a new way to get involved. So yeah, it's been a really positive shift, and I feel better prioritizing these things and actually making time for them.
Yeah, I'm very happy for you. It sounds like you changed your own life for the better. I want to ask you about something that you said earlier, which was when you were in college, you got the sense that volunteering really didn't mean anything in a larger sense. Is volunteering just a form of you taking care of yourself, or do you feel like the volunteering you're doing actually does have a larger purpose?
I think one of the ways that I've come to think about this question is I just don't think we're actually better off when people withhold their time and their generosity. It's not an either or. It's definitely not about giving up political work or collective change. But I think for me, I think I was wrong. I think we've been wrong in concluding that those smaller acts of service were really this stealthy impediment to the broader world we want to build. And I think actually they go together, and demonizing individual action as inconsequential or harmful was a mistake. These things do matter. I'm not solving our blood shortage, but it means someone who needs it can get help that week. Overall, I think it helps to not look at volunteering as something where you need to find that absolutely perfect activity that fulfills all your virtuous desires and perfectly utilizes all your skills. And maybe you won't even really like the first thing you do, but maybe through that you discover something else that you really do find meaningful. And I mean, contrary to what Mark Anders said earlier about how it has to be transformative, I think there's value in just doing something in that, broad world of service, care, and volunteering. And yeah, I think that's absolutely worth your time.
Rachel Cohen, thanks so much for volunteering to take the time for us today.
Thank you so much.
Today Explained is supported by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's rate comparison tool can be used to find a competitive rate on car insurance for coverage on the road. Options to fit most any budget. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Today Explained is supported by BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 35,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
Support comes from Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, celebrating 40 years of CBCA, connecting business and the arts through year-round advocacy, research, training, and arts engagement in 2025. Learn more at cbca.org.
Many of the foods on a Thanksgiving table come from indigenous traditions. On Colorado Matters, we reflect on the holiday with Osage chef Ben Jacobs.
I am opposed to the story that is told of Thanksgiving, because again, that's a romantic image. I am about what it represents.
A visit to his Denver restaurant, Kokabe, at 7 on CPR News and KRCC.
Supported by Select Health. Are you a federal employee or retiree, civilian, military, or postal? Then there's another way for you to support CPR through the Combined Federal Campaign. At givecfc.org, search for Colorado Public Radio. Your gift provides key support for the Colorado reporting you hear on this station. It's your chance to give back. Donate through the Combined Federal Campaign by January 15th and make a difference for our community. Thank you.
This is a day.
Today Explained.
This is a day.
This is Today Explained.
I'm Robert D. Putnam, but nobody calls me Robert. Nobody who knows me calls me Robert. They call me Bob. And I am a retired professor at Harvard University, and I write books.
25 years ago, Bob wrote a book called Bowling Alone. It was grounded in data, and it offered a simple premise. Once upon a time, Americans joined bowling leagues. Now, they're going bowling by themselves. He extended the metaphor, positing that our declining social connections were leading to a decline in our democratic society. Lonely Americans, he wrote, are not great for America. The book was a strike. It's still influential today. Bob Putnam is nothing if not game, and so we asked him to read Rachel's essay and to give us his thoughts.
I rejoice in millennials volunteering one-on-one. For many reasons, it's good for the people they're helping, but it's also good for them. There's a lot of evidence that if you're volunteering to help somebody else, you're probably get more benefits out of it than they do, because there are all sorts of, even physiological changes, but certainly people, after you volunteered, you're happier than if you hadn't volunteered. And probably also the person you're helping is better off.
Rachel essentially is writing, and you've just said the same thing. Volunteering is good for the person who is doing the volunteering, right?
Correct.
Is that the reason to volunteer?
It's one reason to volunteer. You don't have to choose between the reasons, but it's good for you and it's good for, those around you. In writing the book Bowling Alone, I talked about a lot of the consequences of our connections with other people, both our actual in-person connections and our connections through, political organizations or whatever. And that is a community in which people are more connected with one another the whole community functions better, not just the two people involved in a given exchange. But let me give an example from education. If I, as a parent, get involved in my child's school, I join the PTA or I volunteer in the classroom or whatever, that turns out to be good for my child. But the astonishing thing is, my getting involved has even more effect on the success and the happiness and so on of other kids in the school, even the kids I don't actually see. That's this external effect, if I can put it that way. And in some sense, that's the big picture of Bowling Alone, and it's why I don't want to claim that I'm a prophet, but in the book Bowling Alone, which was written almost 30 years ago, 25 to 30 years ago, I talked about the decline in these connections, decline in what I called social capital. And I said, gosh, if this continues, it's going to be bad for American democracy. You know, we're going to have more polarized politics and so on. That was 30 years ago. And the reason that there's now a little bit of a new wave of interest in my work is that I turned out to be right. I mean, Lower Side of Manhattan, big gaps between rich and poor. We were very socially disconnected. And actually also, although I don't want to focus on this too much, it's a true fact, we were culturally very, very much self-centered. We were a kind of an I society rather than a we society. We didn't think of ourselves as having a lot in common. And then, beginning about 1910, none of these things are super exact, but about 1910, all of those things began to change, and they moved in a different, better direction for a half century and more. So from roughly 1910 to roughly 1965 or 1970, every year we became less polarized politically, less socially isolated, less unequal or more equal, and more of a sense of a we society. So we went from being an I society around 1900 to being a we society around, roughly speaking, 1965. And the movements of the 1960s, which you referred to, but no doubt you don't remember, I do remember that period, that was the culmination of a half-century-long increase in political participation, increase in connecting with other people, increase in cooperation across party lines, increase in equality. And then, and I have to say this is just about the time when I personally began to vote, so you may think I I personally brought these problems on America. In the middle 60s, all those lines turned. And for the next half century, up to now, every year we got more socially isolated, more politically disconnected, more unequal. We lost it all.
At some point in her life, Rachel stopped volunteering. Many people have done the same. I am one of those people, incidentally. But when she started volunteering again, she found that it really helped her. If the idea is we do have to get people back to volunteering for the sake of society,
yes,
could it work to sell joining clubs, volunteering, in-person engagement as this will make you feel good? I promise. And the side effect is that it's good for society, it's good for democracy. But if you're going to do it for yourself. Think of it as a kind of self-care.
The danger to your life expectancy from social isolation is as big a risk factor for premature death as smoking.
Huh.
Now, you probably don't smoke, but if you did smoke and you had a choice, should I cut smoking or should I join a club? By all means, join the club. There are huge personal benefits from connecting with other people, including joining. So the reason that you or Rachel or anybody else, the most important reason actually that you should connect with other people, you will add years to your life expectancy.
You're going to live longer, and also you're going to save American society.
By the way, you're also going to save American democracy. That's right.
Robert Putnam. You won't find him bowling alone. Miles Bryan knew that you needed something good in 2025. He produced today's show. Matthew Collette edited, Laura Bullard fact-checked, and Patrick Boyd engineered. The rest of our team includes Avishai Artsy, Halima Shah, Peter Balanan Rosen, Hadi Muagdi, Victoria Chamberlain, Andrea Christensdottir, and Rob Byers. Amina El Sadi is a supervising editor. Miranda Kennedy is our executive producer, and we use music by Breakmaster Cylinder. Are you thankful for Sean Ramaswamy this holiday season? I sure am. Why don't you drop him a 5-star review on Apple and tell him I sent you? We'll be off tomorrow, so you have plenty of time. Today Explained is distributed by WNYC, and the show is a part of Vox.
Today Explained is supported by Project Innerspace, an independent, nonpartisan organization working with climate-conscious donors to pursue a cleaner, sustainable future by bringing geothermal energy into the mainstream. More info at projectinnerspace.org.
Colorado's Front Range. Just where does it start and end?
Why does Denver sometimes smell like dog food?
What's the perfect seat at Red Rocks for the best sound?
These are the kinds of Colorado questions we've gotten and answered in the past. I'm Rachel Estabrook from the CPR Newsroom, and we want to hear from you, too. Ask your question at cpr.org/Colorado Wonders. Help us all discover more about our state of wonders. cpr.org/Colorado Wonders.
This is CPR News, 89.5 FM, KPRN Grand Junction, 88.3 FM, KPRH Montrose, and 88.3 FM, KPYR Craig. On translators in Gunnison, K210BS, Uray, K218BE, Parachute, K203FJ, Rangeley, K216BO, and Meeker, K216BP. And on your smart speaker, say play CPR News.
Support comes from the Colorado Symphony performing Mozart and Now, January 10th through 12th at Betcher Concert Hall. 3 performances contrasting the music of Mozart and today's composers. coloradosymphony.org.
Welcome to News Hour from the BBC World Service. I'm Sean Lay. The Israeli military imposes an overnight curfew on Lebanese civilians trying to return home after the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. We hear from negotiator and US envoy Amos Hochstein.
This deal yesterday opens two doors. One is for a deal with Hamas, getting the hostages out and ending the conflict, and two, a normalization agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia. That's why this deal is so important. It's not just about Lebanon. It's a key that unlocks potentially an even broader door.
A jailed Egyptian dissident's mother on hunger strike trying to secure his freedom.
The last time I saw him was on the 18th of November, which was actually his 43rd birthday. He didn't feel like he was ever going to be let out.
And ending 1,000 years of meat trading in the heart of London.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. A spokeswoman for Donald Trump says several people he has chosen for his incoming administration have received threats, including bomb alerts. Those targeted included cabinet nominees. Jessica Parker is in Washington.
Donald Trump's transition team says these ranged from bomb threats to swatting. That's where a house call is made to the police alleging a serious crime so that a heavily armed SWAT team is dispatched. The FBI said it was aware of numerous incidents and was working with law enforcement partners. Donald Trump's pick for US Ambassador to the UN, Elise Stefanik, confirmed her family's home had been targeted, as did the man chosen to head up America's Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin. He said a pipe bomb threat had been sent with a pro-Palestinian themed message.
Israel has issued an overnight curfew to people in Lebanon seeking to return to the south of the country, following the agreement of a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Thousands of displaced civilians are attempting to return to their homes. Rami Rahim from the BBC's Arabic service is in southern Lebanon.
This is Dahiyeh, the southern suburb of Beirut, and we can see the immense destruction that was caused by Israel's bombing campaign. We hear that the challenges are going to be immense, the challenges of reconstruction. We don't know how quickly people will be able to return to their homes and to their neighborhoods. They have started, and there is a tangible feeling of relief among many who have come and who saw that their homes are still standing. There's also relief because the bombs have stopped falling, but there's also a lot of apprehension.
Israel has informed the International Criminal Court it will appeal against the arrest warrants for the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his former defense minister over the Gaza conflict. Earlier, the French Foreign Ministry said leaders of countries that are not members of the ICC court, like Israel, enjoy certain immunities, and France may not arrest the Israeli leader. A court in France has been hearing the closing defense arguments in a mass rape trial that has shaken the country. Andrew Harding has more details.
Dominique Pellico has admitted to almost everything, to drugging and raping his wife Giselle, and to inviting strangers to rape her as he filmed them. French prosecutors have asked for the maximum prison sentence, 20 years. But Pellico's own lawyer has now set out the defense case for a shorter sentence. The lawyer, Beatrice Savaro, painted a picture of a split personality, a loving husband and father, but also a man traumatized by being raped as a child, someone with perverse sexual needs that his wife could not satisfy.
You're listening to the World News from the BBC.
This is CPR News and KRCC. I'm Mike Lamb. The University of Denver is facing an $11 million deficit, partly because of declining enrollment. 8 staff members at DU have been laid off. Another 15 positions will be replaced. Aaron Schneider, the president of DU's chapter of the American Association of University Professors, says the cuts will negatively affect students.
And it undermines the higher ed function, the higher ed contribution to civic life that University of Denver should be performing.
DU has among the highest tuitions across Colorado, charging a base of $60,000 for a full year of courses. DU's endowment is valued at over $1 billion. The word of the year, according to dictionary.com, is demure. CPR's Haley May explains.
Very demure.
Yep, that's your governor, Jared Polis, attempting to be on trend with the latest TikTok phrase.
Very practical, very mindful, very demure.
The pop culture reference started when beauty influencer Jules LeBron posted a video to her account in August describing a makeup look as very demure, which quickly went viral.
Very demure, very mindful.
Dictionary.com says the word experienced a nearly 1,200% increase in usage on digital web media alone this year.
See how I dressed for the Colorado State Fair? Very demure.
Other words that made the short list: brain rot, and of course, brat. Gen Z slang terms that still have some of us scratching our heads. Haley May, CPR News.
University of Colorado football coach Deion Sanders says he'll give his personal Jim Thorpe Award trophy to CU wide receiver Travis Hunter. Sanders says he was outraged after Hunter was snubbed as a finalist for this year's prize. The Jim Thorpe Award goes to the best defensive back in college football. Sanders himself won it in 1988. Travis Hunter is still in the running for this year's college football Heisman Trophy. This is CPR News and KRCC.
Hello and welcome to News Hour from the BBC World Service, coming to you live from London. I'm Sean Lay. A ceasefire is not an end, but a beginning, the start of a process with both sides sensitive to any deviation from the agreement. US envoy to Lebanon, Amos Hochstein, who we'll hear from shortly, brokered the deal in conjunction with France, the former colonial power in Lebanon and still influential there. Mr. Hochstein stressed that the next 60 days should see a gradual withdrawal of Israel's defense forces from Lebanon's sovereign territory. Hezbollah, in turn, is supposed to remove fighters and weapons from what's known as the Blue Line, the unofficial border between Lebanon and Israel, and the Litani River, about 30 kilometers to the north of that. The Lebanese army will replace them and ensure that any weapons or infrastructure used by the armed group can't be restored. Both Israel and Lebanon have cautioned people displaced by the fighting not to rush back to their homes, but thousands in southern Lebanon appear to be ignoring the advice. Lines of vehicles had backed up on the main highway that links Beirut, the capital, to southern Lebanon throughout the day. Some drivers displayed Hezbollah flags and posters showing the group's former leader Hassan Nasrallah killed in an Israeli airstrike. And as we've heard, Israel is now imposing an overnight curfew on those people trying to move. Well, the BBC's Lina Sinjab went to Daia in southern Beirut today and spoke to one woman outside the ruins of her family home.
My name is Rayan Salman. I lived here for around 25 years since I was born. And we had to leave our home and we went to Aramoun, Mount Lebanon, and it was so hard for us.
Can you explain what happened? Did you get a warning to leave, to evacuate?
Yes, we had a warning one night before and we left, but they just destroyed here before our house. So I came one night before and I saw my house. It wasn't destroyed, but it was a disaster. A night after, it's all gone.
And now what are you going to do? Who's going to bring that back to life?
We don't know. My parents spent all their life in this house and we did as well. And one night all is gone.
Did you manage to take anything? Do you have anything from the house?
We didn't take anything from the house. We didn't have time.
But I'm glad you are safe as well.
We are safe, but we're not good.
Are you optimistic about this deal, that it will last?
I hope. We've been through a lot. And our generation, since we were graduated, Corona, the dollar, everything, it's not right.
And now comes this.
And now comes this.
And what do you think is going to happen next, with the country, with your own lives, with this, destruction around?
We don't know.
Lina Sinjab reporting it's taken months of patient negotiation, disrupted by long periods of impasse before this deal could be agreed. Both Israel and Hezbollah initially laid down conditions unacceptable to the other side, but then that's in the nature of negotiation. The question remains whether a deal with Hezbollah creates the space for a new initiative to bring an end to the fighting in Gaza, where Israel is fighting Hamas. I asked Amos Hochstein, US President Joe Biden's envoy to Lebanon, about that. But first, in this, one of his first interviews since he helped broker the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, I asked how he thinks the mistakes of a previous ceasefire agreement between them, made in 2006, can be avoided.
That's a great question. It's the most important one because the 2006 agreement was remarkably successful in ending the conflict and a total failure when it comes to actual implementation. I mean, first of all, the language itself was a document that was not a very likely one